Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8 and Third Reich events installed. Let's go up here, get the clock moving forward. Here, of course, now land power. And industrial production has advanced. That is excellent news. So let's move this too far forward. Now I don't fully understand why increasing industrial production reduces IC efficiency. I don't necessarily understand, and I'm not, saying it's wrong, but the opposite is true there. I mean, they don't fully cancel each other out, but the idea that there is growth, why it's vice versa, but okay, I don't get that. A lot of things I don't get, but that just seems odd. Now I could see reducing manpower because industrial production improvement means like more shifts in the factory. And just some of my thoughts. At this time they were building some Panzer I tanks, and don't hold me to any of the numbers here, but the German army might say, oh, in the next 3 months we want 60 Panzer I tanks to be built. And whether it was Arquette or Krupp or Mann or whoever they ordered them from, they'll go, okay, great, that'll keep our factory open, we'll build the tanks, full employment for the shift. And so they'd be building some Panzer I tanks of a particular model type. And so they'd go through that production run. But that is not necessarily, and most likely, the production capability of that factory for that period. They could have maybe built 90 tanks in 30 days just running one shift at the factory. They weren't anywhere near at this time point going turn on that factory and have it run. They were just, order some, see how that goes, order a few more, test those out, and they were playing around with it. And I understand from several senses. One, they weren't sure, how well these tanks were going to work. They weren't sure on, to a degree. They weren't sure what a tank was yet, obviously, and, you look at the what is it, the A7V or whatever, the World War I German monstrosity, sort of land ship, huge thing, or you look at the British, like Mark IV or whatever, that, the tracks looped around on it with the side sponts and guns. Sorry, I don't remember all the World War I tank names right off the top, and I hadn't intended to talk about this, so I didn't look them up. That sort of thing, or was it coming off of a French FT-17, which is sort of what tanks became, is something with a turret on it, and you're mounting the gun in the turret. And so they got that part of it right, but is it going to, and they were still building at this time some heavy tanks, and let's just see, because we can produce heavy tanks. I don't know what, yeah, these guys. They were still looking at some of these and building these in numbers of like, ordering like 3 or whatever, and they had 3 different companies, and so I think there was like a total of 9 of them or something. And it's a little hard to see in the photo, but the sort of high top turret there, and then down here is basically a Panzer I turret, and they had one here, and then sort of in the back on the opposite corner they had another Panzer I turret. Let's see if it's heavy armor. Yeah, here we go. You see there's the turret on that side, and the 75mm gun. So, and I have to look that up, I don't know. Some of the models had the gun, I think, on top, and then the machine gun below it, and other ones they had, from the different companies, the gun there, and then next to it a coaxial machine gun with it there, as well as the two turrets. You can see the one here with the Panzer I turret, and you can barely see the other one right back there. And so, was that what a heavy tank was going to be? They were still working out what a tank was. And so I get that point. I really do. And it's why they're not like, oh, turn the factory on, let it roll. And I also get the point that they weren't planning the war in 39. They were planning 40, 42. So there was time, especially in 38, that they weren't turning on the spigot of whatever factories and say, produce. They still weren't doing that either once the war started. That's sort of the odd thing about it. But the really odd thing about it. But how do you model? But getting back to the game mechanics is how do you model? And I grant you reasonable back to historical things that they weren't ready to say, oh well, this is what a Panzer I was going to be. No, they were still like, how thick is the armor? How's the the engine connected to the tracks, through the transmission and the various gears and sprockets and everything to keep the tracks running right, and they wanted to get out and they wanted a bunch and to run them through mud and sand and whatever and see how they worked. And so they were still working on that. And I totally grant that. Totally grant that. Sorry about the sound. But from a game standpoint is how do you model the ICs? We're getting, with Hearts of Iron 4, several factory types, and unfortunately they are supposedly very hard-coded. I specifically talked to Panzeru about that, and they could maybe hard-code in some additional types. But the civil factories, the military production factories, the naval factories, they can only produce those types of things. I was particularly wanting to add in something like aircraft factories, and me being me, I was also thinking about small arms factories and artillery factories and what could we model. I'm just dreaming up what I might theoretically mod, but the one big thing I wanted to do was aircraft factories, and he said, nope, it's hard-coded. We tried to keep it unhard-coded, and I believe him that he tried. Not just telling me what I wanted to hear, but because he was telling me what I didn't want to hear, in that it was hard-coded, but that they tried. So I believe him. And so how do you model the ICs? Well, for this game purposes, I believe they reversed engineered the IC modeling, in that they sort of figured out, I totally believe, I would have a hard time believing otherwise, is they figure out, oh well, at this time, how many ICs do we need to produce what the German army was in 1939? And starting in 36 through 39, and they go through and they play test, and they figure, 300 ICs or something. Okay, so that's how many Germany will start with. And if you want more, well, yeah, once the war started, they added shifts to some of the production, and they did this thing, and so you have some of the laws change. And they're getting at what I'm, they're not stupid people. They're getting at what I'm talking about, but it's still a reverse engineered thing. But are you running one shift of 8 hours? Are you running one shift of 10 hours? Are you running 2 shifts of 8 hours each? Or are you running 2 shifts of 10 hours each? Or are you running 3 shifts of 8 hours? And filling up the day, how are you running? And how's your factory efficiency? The Germans were not very factory efficient. They were, the general, I don't want to say myth because I think it's true, the general perception is that the Germans were trying for very high quality, and I think that's very true. But they could have done high quality like the Americans would, and have one machine produce one widget, and that's all that machine produces is one widget. Where from several sources I've read, is that the Germans would have the one machine would say, oh, well, we need 500 of those widgets. Okay, we produced 500 of those widgets. Okay, now reset the machine to produce 500 of these gadgets. And then they would switch over and produce 500 of the gadgets. And then they would, oh, well, we now need to something else. And they would set the, where the Americans, once they got onto a type, you know, a widget, a nut, a bolt, whatever, they would turn that machine on, and that machine will only make that part until they decided they weren't going to make that part anymore, because it was either discontinued or they had, you know, more than they ever knew what to do with, or whatever it was. It was going to make that one part until they didn't need it anymore. Whether the war was over, or they stopped making that type of tank, or whatever it was, and so it was much more efficient. So some of that can be modeled with laws, but part of what I've done with TRE is where you, like historically, like the Ford plant or something like that in Cologne, that I add there, and I sort of look at that as not everything top-down directed, and sort of the real flexibility in that the production capability of a factory isn't a fixed, finite thing, and it isn't necessarily either adding on to that factory or building a whole new factory next door or whatever means a new development. And so I don't know, you know, how best to handle it. How do you judge production capabilities? That's something I'm struggling with, is try to determine the best ways and to do that for Hearts of Iron 4 on Nations. So that's just sort of what I've been thinking about production, and, you know, how fast and how much they can produce. And it isn't just a practical system that by producing some you produce more. Okay, that's part of it, but you produce, you know, what's your shift policy rate, what your labor skill rate is. You have a really good craftsman, he can produce a really good object, and then you have him, like, say, produce 500 of them, and then switch over and produce 500 something else, and then produce, you know, you can do all that, and it takes a long time to train him up, and that can come under training laws or whatever else. But with, like, the American system, you needed a few craftsmen, no doubt, to know how to produce all those right. But then you just get somebody in there, and you train that up to just produce one object. It's all they know how to produce. They don't know how to produce the object next to the person next to them unless they're producing the exact same object. And so you just have a lot of highly skilled people doing, but they're only skilled at doing one thing, whatever the one thing is. And it may have multiple steps, but they wouldn't necessarily know how to walk across to the other side of the factory and know anything about doing that other person's job. Because the day they signed up at that factory, they didn't know anything about, you know, working with steel or aluminum or whatever. They just showed up and, hey, I'm a worker, train me up, and I'll do it. And so that, you know, it comes into efficiencies, production styles, and so what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is we can easily do shifts here from full mobile, you know, from mixed industry to heavy industry, or we can do from full mobilization to war economy, which is like more shifts on the day, but that doesn't necessarily talk about and because this is the same theoretically, is once you get to this, and it can be different conditions, because obviously I can go now at this condition because I'm not a democracy, so I can go now with this. One of the main reasons I'm not is the massive increase in consumer goods during peacetime and the daily descent charge increases. So that's why I'm not choosing to go this path. But what it doesn't model is the difference between methods between U.S. methods, British methods, French methods, and some of those might not be as big as some of the differences like with the Soviet methods or the US production methods, and the theoretical possibility is, and I may be talking too much and you should just get on and play, but been thinking about how to deal with things, because they're talking a lot about sandbox for Hearts of Iron 4. And I'm happy for people that they want to play however they want to play. If they want to have the game just start in 1936 and then just, with the AI, everything going dynamically weird so that there's equal chance for Italy to become a member of the Axis as it is for it to become a member of the Comintern or something. If that's the way they want to play and have modded it that way or whatever, that's fine. But the way I would like to play is I like to play the country that I'm playing and make the decisions there. And then generally speaking, not absolutely, but generally speaking, all the other countries to behave within historical parameters. Doesn't mean that they do exactly the same thing they did in World War II at the exact same time. No, nothing like that. Excuse me, but work within the parameters of at least what I think it would be impossible. Italy isn't going to somehow be influenced by a huge amount of influence points from the Soviet Union or something that the AI may do, and oops, we have a communist revolution and it's now part of the Comintern. I just don't see that as being a practical possibility. Spain obviously sort of did have that, was being influenced through various internal and external factors into that, and then there was the Civil War. But I don't see that as being anywhere by 1936. You can look at 1920 something, but in 36 I don't see that, and later, as any practical possibility. So I don't want that to be a possible thing happening in the games that I play and the way I look at it. So back to the production thing is I want, shall we say, national, and people often talk about nerfing France. Well, France had a lot of nerfs to it. It had a fractured society. It had a fractured government. It's I haven't looked into too much detail, but its production, especially in in this time before the Austrian or the Czech crisis, but the Czech crisis is only when they really start to wake up. And yes, they did have we build the Maginot Line, we have a large enough army just because we think there's a possibility that someday in the future Germany will misbehave idea. But beyond that, they didn't have a solid defense building programs that were united. So France sort of needs to be this disunited country to have the ability for Germany to overrun them in 1939 or 40 to be able to have that. And so I want that to happen if I'm the German player. But then again, if I'm a French player, I could see it could be a really interesting challenge through domestic policies to work to build a united France, to build an efficiently producing France, to build a French army that, I'm one of those weird, maybe I'm just being a contrary person, I think the Maginot Line worked. It made them go around it. People thought, oh yeah, silly fixed defenses, war is a mobile thing, and blah 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 blah. Hey, it worked. They went around it. It was so good they went around it. Now it's not perfect. I think it's overdone with some of the levels of fortifications done in Hearts of Iron. Not blaming Black Ice or anything, it's just Hearts of Iron. It's maybe a bit overdone. But it worked. It got them to go around. In a way, Eben and Mall worked. It got them to land the commando team and gliders on top and take the fort out without any losses. But it was such a good fort, it made them do something different than what you would have done otherwise, and for what it was made to defend against, to the Germans it looked like it was an effective defense against what it was made to defend against. It wasn't made to defend against airborne attack. you know. So I'm a believer in fixed defenses, but they're not what you base your national defense on either. In the sense that, oh, we build fixed defenses, then we talk to the Belgians and they're going to have their fixed defenses, so we're all good. No, fixed defenses are a delaying element. It delays the enemy's attack until you can be prepared to deal with it. If they're going to fight their way through it, it's going to take them more effort to fight their way through it, and so they're going to have to concentrate their attack here, and they can't be also attacking everywhere else, so that you can then concentrate your counterattack. That kind of thing. It's not, we have the Maginot Line, it'll hold the line, it'll be the defense of the nation. No, it's just a delay. Or, the other thing, and this is sort of a Japanese fortification I learned about, Japanese castles always had weaknesses. They designed the castles to have weaknesses, unlike European castles. They specifically designed the castles to have obvious weaknesses. And that was for the Japanese mindset, is if the castle is strong everywhere, you won't know where the enemy will attack, because the enemy will pick its place. Where if there's an obvious weakness to it, the enemy will attack on the obvious weakness. I really don't know how well Japanese castles were designed to withstand long-term sieges. I don't really think that was their major intent. Their major intent was to focus the enemy attack on a position that they could determine, and then try to shape that battlefield by physical shaping of the weaker spots. And so a fewer number of soldiers could effectively, and because in the way it would design it is, so you would have, say, 100 defenders would fight 25 attackers at the time, 4-to-1 right at that moment of combat. But the attackers may be 10 times as many as your 100 defenders, but they could only get in a certain number at a time. So it was designed to shape the battlefield so that at the point of combat, and you were trying to have a point of combat, not just, hey, we're up on the walls, you're down there, you can't get at us, nani nunu. No, it was, let's have this battle, but we're going to have it here, and we're going to fight it, and we're going to win. That was the mindset for a Japanese castle designer, different than a Western castle designer. That's another way to look at the Maginot Line. They thought the Ardennes forest was practically impenetrable for a modern military force. Not that soldiers couldn't walk through it. Of course they could. They knew that. It was too few of roads to move a mechanized armored force through it. It was too rough of roads, too narrow of roads, too few of roads to effectively, from the French point of view, to move enough logistic supplies through it rapidly enough to make it a place of advance. They knew it. They were wrong, but that's what they knew. They knew it was too difficult to advance through it. So, if you notice, some of these forts are designed to hold Belgium, but they collaterally were designed to help defend France. If you can't go through Belgium to attack France, maybe you'll just leave Belgium out of the war. That was sort of the Belgian hope. So, the idea that if you didn't think that this was impenetrable, if you understood, as obviously we can look back and understand now as a wargamer, is you can build a Maginot Line that you're going to hold and then go, oh, okay, so we'll place all of our mechanized divisions, say, right here, and wait for them to come through, and then we're going to slam them in the side. Or something like, have the idea that you're shaping the battle by leaving an area that isn't well defended, or isn't as well as defended. So you create a weak spot, you create a reserve, so that they come through the weak spot at the known place and you hit them. So that's another way I would use fortifications in a modern World War II setting, or a truly modern setting. The other thing with the Ardennes offensive is, of course, everyone knew that you couldn't have an offensive through it. And then, of course, Germany showed that you couldn't have an offensive through. You could have an offensive through it, but then, of course, everyone knew you couldn't. So the Americans left that part, not well defended, and the Battle of the Bulge happened, here at Bastogne. So yeah, okay, it was winter, and they might not have, they're thinking, well, we're not going to be attacked here, so they had forces up here, and they had forces down here, ready for the German counterattack, and the Germans came through basically the exact same places before, through the impenetrable forest before that. Sometimes the thinking of people that they don't learn from past. Okay, so we were talking about production here, but on the shifts in thought. So that's just sort of my thought. Sorry for digressing there. Let's get back to the game. Yep, no more money for supplies from Denmark. Is hoping to get this into the positive territory here. More factories have come fully online. Now, we are 50 down on that. And I don't know how much you're following the Black Ice forums. I complained a little bit about the, particularly this number. This number I'm fine with because Germany did need to import steel. Excuse me. But they didn't need to import energy. They had lots of energy. A lot of it was in coal. A lot of it was in hydroelectrical power. The dam busters, blowing up the dam. So that they had that. Now they did, like I was talking in another episode, I think. Actually, no, I think I'm going to be talking about it. Is they were building a major factory there, or a major power plant there during this time. But should we need to build more coal mines? And the suggestion was, I said, even when we were talking about it, I know that you can just simply build more of these to address the situation. But looking at coal totals and things. But I was still complaining about it. Okay. Energy. So that would be place to build a coal. How costly is a coal mine? Okay, it's 4 ICs. Being done. So we're going to kick both of those up there. Let's see. Should we want to sell them? No. No. Italy. We got a lot of repairs. I put most of the produced aircraft and other units on the map so they could start upgrading. Unfortunately, you can't decide to put more ICs into officer recruitment. That's useful, even if it's a little early. And get them done faster. And they're going to upgrade at the standard upgrade time, and I just don't want them to be still worrying about upgrades when the war is happening. See what Spain is doing. I'm going to create some sort of pocket there and there, which means Spanish are losing. They're still doing fairly well down there, but that ain't going to keep them alive. Okay, the SSHQs have advanced. That's good enough for the moment. We're going to convert it over to mountain HQs. Use them in rugged terrain. They're quite useful. That's one SS Army and 2 SS Corps. HQs won't need those. I use those, I think, as I said before, mainly to do internal security control. They themselves, the headquarters and their sub-units, are very effective at suppression. And as we can see, the Japanese are got that, not surrounded, but flanked. And they've got this peninsula. Wow, they're doing pretty well. It's isolated. There. Keep moving there. And as you can see, what we're building here. Various elements. So if you want some supplies, okay. I know those won't last forever because we'll be taking them. They don't have money. We got money, so let's see if Sweden wants supplies from us. No. Turkey. Lots of money and they need supplies. They don't like us enough at the moment, I guess. The US is set up basically to buy supplies, so we will sell some from them, or sell some to them. And so we okay, twin-engine bomber crew has improved. That's nice. To that level. Let's... Okay, now we're positive here. I want to get positive here. We can wait for a while for the factories to come on, or the mines to come online. I want to get this guy positive too. No, didn't turn off the clock, or turn back on the clock. Sorry about that. Okay. Gun turrets have advanced. That's great. And machine gun focus has advanced. That's also very good. Going no. No. Norway. Okay, so Norway I won't have to. Romania won't have to use transport. Alright, yeah, this, I had to, restart from a save game, so some of these, like this, I talked about before, talked about this before, but I had to go back and go back to an autosave. So we had another Soviet officer purge. Now those officer purges, they sort of show the difference between the way Germany was keeping its populace in line by giving them the Wilhelm Gustloff and having them, you know, holidays. The Soviets, things weren't going well in the Soviet Union. They were going pretty damn crappy. I don't know the exact dates right offhand of the enforced Ukrainian famine. No, there was plenty of food. It just needed either for export purposes or for Moscow and other cities having some revolts here. Somewhat historic. And so that they had the Ukrainian famine that they engineered. They actually had soldiers out protecting the fields, and when people would try to sneak out there to get food, they'd shoot them on sight. And it got down to cannibalism bad in the Ukraine, and it was real bad. And the Soviet people knew that things weren't going well, so somebody had to be blamed. And the one organization that was around that could have changed things was the army, the Cheka NKVD or whatever you want to call it. They were the organ of the state, so they weren't, you know, of Stalin's state, so they weren't going to be the ones that would do a coup. It would be the army, and you had to blame the army for the problems. You had to show that any leader that was a leader within the army, you know, someone dynamic, someone capable, that once you showed that, you were going to be killed. So that's why they were doing these purges. I could go into it more, and I may have already done so in a few other episodes, but okay, now Turkey. Yes. Yugoslavia, no. Okay, high popularity. We've got high popularity, that's great. Or did we lose high popularity? What was that? Sorry, I didn't look at it. No longer, yeah, because we got, oh, we have very high popularity. See, this is one reason why. Because I noticed something popped up and I guess I accidentally hit it. Is why I like to stop for these, partially for the talks, but also playing. Because things pop up like I'm trying to click that unit and up pops one of these and go, okay, what did I just okay? Declare war on Italy? You know, so that's sort of why I play, stop, or, clock, move, stop. Okay, so we've had very high popularity happen to us, so we are doing really well at the moment. So we have more research. Twin engine armament research has advanced. It's also likely why, well, no, because that's green as it is, because it's one of those that'll push forward on if we liked. So we got one more here. We filled up the thing. Yep, filled the queue up. Okay. Second Sino-Japanese War broke out in 37. We have a choice. We can stop trade, which will lose our effects, or we can continue it, which will send us down another path. We're going to support our future ally, Japan. I think we already talked about this. Yes, we'll support them. I'm pretty sure we also talked about that earlier. So we're going to have another hit to these. Effect going away. Okay. Hitler paying the ex-Kaiser's bills, Friends of the Exiles. This was a report in the Los Angeles Times. This was set up, wasn't necessarily Hitler paying a bill, but the German government fairly quietly supporting. Obviously, because it wasn't, I'm saying fairly quietly, in that obviously it's made a newspaper article way off in Los Angeles, but it also not like official government policy that they're making statements from whatever Reichstag or whatever. But it was, Hitler was no great fan of the Kaisers, but he wanted the support of the army and the traditionalists. So by doing this somewhat quietly, but enough that the traditionalists knew that it was happening, whether they thought that this was, Hitler possibly might bring him back or something. I don't know that it was going that far, but just keeping him in a respectable, retired gentleman's position there. Okay. Sudeten Congress of the Sudeten Party in Carlsbad. That's here, I believe, right there. Too many things on the screen right now. Yeah, Cheb. You can see large groups of people marching, a lot of people watching, big rally, speeches, looks like any other Nazi type thing, but very well attended in there. So, in Cheb, basically, after World War II, Czechoslovakia had a policy of what we would call today ethnic cleansing, and kicked all the German-speaking people out. They weren't going to have this happen again, so they just kicked them all out. Wrong, right? If I were the Germans, I'd want to get out of communist Czechoslovakia too. Wouldn't maybe want to lose my home either. But just the German, they just kicked them all out. So, and the Czechs took over that area. And also, same rally, a few badges, either from the rally, tinnies, as they're sometimes called, or just generally from the period. And you can see inside the hall, balcony, everything filled, lots of people looking up at the lectern, except for the change in symbols. It's eerily similar to, any other Nazi government rally type thing. And we already had that event, I believe. Okay, so we're ending the Sino-German cooperation here. We'll lose 15% metal, so we're gotta buy some more metal and build some steel factories, and we're losing rare materials as well. Gun position twin engine airplanes has advanced. Save the other one to talk about it a little bit more here. And that allows us to start with gun ability, twin engine airplanes advanced. Okay, Standard Oil and IG Farben. Standard Oil was one of the big, near monopolistic, and I think it may have been broken up, or part of it broken up or something, I forget, late 19th century for the anti-monopoly laws. Massive stuff, massive corporation in the U.S., very, very powerful. It was the standard in oil, in quality and everything like that. IG Farben, we've talked about before. There's a photograph of that big building that we saw in that other event for the medical stuff, period artwork, but also period photo. In 1938, Standard Oil provided IG Farben with its new butyl rubber process. This technology was critical because Germany had no natural rubber, and thus Germany's ability to fight depended on synthetic rubber. This will expand the Horst IG facilities in Frankfurt, and it will also let Standard Oil expand its facilities. Rubber at that time came from Brazil or Africa, places such as that, as well as Indonesia, where they planted rubber trees, and Malaya. So I think they had it in Africa. I know they had it in Malaya and Indonesia and Brazil, but I think in the Congo? Not sure if somebody can chime in if they wish. And Germany just didn't have access to it once it got cut off. I've seen some early 1920s trucks with metal tires that were sort of semi-flexible. These weren't wheels without rubber tires. These were things designed to sort of run on metal tires. They must have been awful to ride in. It looked like all the guys were standing up in the back of the truck, so maybe sitting on the truck was either that or it was too packed, I don't know which, but sitting down in the truck and driving on the streets was maybe very painful. But so they needed to develop an alternative source, and you have rubber and other plastics can be made out of the byproducts of making gasoline. So it's not a gasoline or rubber situation, it's a separation situation that you can use the oil for multiple purposes, plastics, rubber, various synthetics like that, and still get all the fuel you need from the same rubber. So we have the chance here to continue to do business in Frankfurt there, and I've thought, just looking to think, there's no rare materials, and this will give us some. I don't know if we should also put a rare material extraction, but if I just changed it to that, since there's just a local effect, it wouldn't help. So we'll do that. Or we can decide not to, but this will increase our relations with the U.S. and cost us some money and supplies, which is doing too good. I think it's worth it. Okay. Landing craft flotillas advanced. Yay! Yay! Dance, dance in the streets. This means we will now be able to build landing craft. That is really, really great. Bow ramps. None of these are increasing range. This one also, we want to do this increased range because we want to get out there. Plus we have 100 kilometers range increase already. But we want to increase it more. So we're really happy about that. That happened only because we stole some marine technology. Okay, air bases. So in Germany, we want that as well. Okay, Uruguay is the second nation in Latin America that I want to help out. Yeah, let's go Colombia because we need it. Well, actually, let's close. Yes, okay. We're going to take this opportunity to end this episode. You can see Republic in Spain. Well, they reattached there. But it's dying and Japan's doing well. Here. Taking that port, so that's the only place left there, and that's foregone conclusion, that'll fall. We'll hold out without supplies. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like it. Please post comments. I really do appreciate it. Even if it's correcting some of my history, if you know, I would rather get it out there correct. Once in a while I do sort of look things up a little bit in advance because I know what's coming. But mostly this is off the top of my head and what the events say to help me along on that. So thanks very much.